So Dave, the whole idea of the capitalist class, the ruling class, shaking when there's solidarity and unity. What did Thatcher do? Can you tell me something about Thatcher's legacy here and the promotion of self-interest and individualisation in all of this?
I talked earlier about the conservative attempt to recompose the human personality. And so it is fundamental to neoliberalism. It's fundamental that we become purely interested in self-advancement. And that is so antisocial. And actually, if we look at history, if we look at different groups throughout history in different parts of the world, so many, I would say the natural state is to feel sympathy for, empathy for, collectivity with. And Thatcher, and followed by that New Labour, under which New Labour was another Conservative party. In answer to the question, what is your achievement of which you are most proud, Margaret Thatcher answered, New Labour. And Tony Blair, he could have walked on water when he won the 97 election. Instead, he decided to continue to be a Thatcherite. Give him his due, he put a lot more money into schools and health. And that was a difference between New Labour and the Tories. But in terms of the fundamental neoliberal impetus, the recomposition of the human personality into a self-motivated, and more importantly, self-interested, egocentric economic unit, Blair continued with that, as did Brown. And how wonderful it is that the Labour Party has a leader, probably the most left-wing leader since the Labour Party was founded, since Keir Hardie, well over 100 years ago, who does not believe that we are atomised, individual, competitive units, that we are community, we are family, we are, he might not say this, but I will, we are class, we are the working class. Neoliberalism has a twin called neo-conservatism, which is authoritarian nationalism, authoritarian traditionalism, and we see that with Trump, we see that with Erdogan, we see that with Theresa May, we see that with the Law and Justice Party in Poland, we see that with Viktor Orban in Hungary. We see that where neoliberalism is creating widespread social dissent, we see that there are different ways that dissent can go. It can go into left-wing parties, like it did in Greece temporarily. I won't go into that in detail at the moment, but parties like Podemos in Spain, parties for a brief time like Respect in England, then that disaffection can go to the left with a socialist or communist or Marxist understanding of things need to change, capitalism needs to be replaced. But it can also go to the radical right and to the nationalist authoritarian right. And neoliberals have very successfully taken control of governments, such as the one in Turkey, which is a marriage of absolute neoliberalism, gentrification, super exploitation of workers, a bonfire of regulations leading to many deaths. For example, the Soma mine explosion a couple of years back. And that is allied to calls for religion and traditional morality, no kissing on the metro. And similarly, let's take just one more example, Trump. What an absolutely vile person, and what absolutely vile supporters. And I'm not just talking about the neo-Nazis and the Ku Klux Klan. I'm talking about the people who voted for Trump because he thinks it's okay to grab a woman by her pussy, because he wants to build a wall to stop these Hispanics coming in, because he wants to ban Muslims from coming in. Pure racism. Trump is pure sexism, pure racism, and I'm going to add a new dimension here, pure dividing the working class.
Absolutely.
And that is the intention. That is the effect as well as the intention. And that's what the capitalist class always tries to do. Tries to split black from white, tries to split Turk from Kurd, tries to split men from women, gays from straights. And you can even get much more sophisticated. Tries to split baby boomers from the new generation. Tries to split private sector workers from public sector workers. They will always try to divide the working class. I remember going on anti-fascist demonstrations in the 70s, and one of the slogans was, "Black and white, unite and fight, smash the National Front." And that working class unity is essential to change the system, which is why I have problems with identitarian politics, why Hillary Clinton lost the election, apart from being a creature of Wall Street. She thought she could just appeal to women and African Americans. So that unity is so important. Yeah.
I think the whole idea of divide and rule politics is wonderfully captured in Margaret Thatcher's phrase, "There's no such thing as society, only individual men and women." But we now have Jeremy Corbyn, for how long I don't know, but we have Jeremy Corbyn, a left-wing Labour leader, since the only one since the Second World War. How is Jeremy Corbyn promoting solidarity?
Well, he's doing it. He's going around making speeches. He's doing it by talking about social justice. He's doing it. He's promoting solidarity by saying that not we're all in it together, because the capitalist class clearly isn't. They're on a different planet. They're in the stratosphere. But he's talking about equality, decent lives, life chances. He doesn't do what Marxists do. He doesn't use the word working class. He doesn't use the word class much. He's not a Marxist, but he is a very left-wing social democrat, much more left-wing than Jean-Luc Mélenchon in France, than Bernie Sanders in the States. He's anti-imperialist, he's anti-war, but more fundamentally, he wants things like a maximum wage. So nobody earns more than 20 times as much as the lowest paid worker in an organisation. Now that is socialism. It's not communism, but it's on the way to communism, hopefully. It is socialism. It is a high degree of reformism. And Marxists, from Lenin, from Trotsky, Mandel, Marxists have always supported reforms. It's just that Marxists want to go further and change the system instead of reforming the current capitalist system. So Jeremy Corbyn, how is he promoting solidarity? It's by traditional old Labour calls for social solidarity, for fairness, for justice. And on just another little point, and I don't go with the great man theory of history. History is made by movements, but he's a man of absolute integrity. Absolute integrity. He's honest. He doesn't play the media game. I can criticise him. I'm a Marxist. I can criticise him. I don't agree with his wanting to stay in the single market and the customs union. He makes various concessions to the right wing of the Labour Party. I don't think he should. But it's a difference between left-wing social democracy and revolutionary Marxists. Revolutionary in the sense of wanting a revolution to revolutionise society, to get rid of the capitalist system of production, and to have various forms of collective control, workers' control, nationalisation, municipalisation, cooperatives, whatever.
I think one of the ways that Corbyn has been very successful, perhaps a reason for his success, has been that he's been able to build up this momentum, generates momentum of grassroots movements, individual movements coming together under the banner of momentum, particularly. And so you've talked about how, as an individual, you're vulnerable when you resist, but actually, as part of an organisation, is so key for Marxism and Marxists. As part of an organisation, you're less vulnerable.
First of all, I am actually a member of Momentum, and it is stunning. I think there's 20,000 members of Momentum, 2,000 in the city where I live, Brighton. That's 20,000 people who are pro-left politics. And that's what Corbyn's done. And what has he done? He's made the Labour Party into the biggest political party in Western Europe. And he's trying to democratise it. He's trying to take away the power from the new Labour, I'm going to use a slightly offensive word, creatures that make you squirm. I won't name any of them, but when any of them would go on television, they would never give a straight answer. Their main theme seemed to be avoid giving offence to anyone. But then comes Corbyn and says, look, this is what I stand for. And people have really responded to that. So Corbyn has done wonders, in a way, wonders. Ahead in the opinion polls, whoever would have thought it. Increase the size of the Labour Party, democratising the Labour Party. Just one tiny example, at the September 2017 conference, there's going to be less speeches from shadow ministers, etc. Much more space for a debate from the floor.
One of the important things that John MacDonald and Jeremy Corbyn has done is talked about university tuition fees. Calculated it at just £13 billion. That's all it would cost to make university level education completely free again. And you could do that by taking just a little bit more, taking corporate tax back up to what it was in 2010.
Absolutely.
Bang, you have free education straight away, free higher education straight away. He's talked about stopping the academisation of schools, bringing back comprehensivisation. Again, very easy. So, stroke of a pen, it can be done. He's talked about how to bring back things such as the education maintenance allowance. Isn't it just that if there is a will, if there is a will, and if there's support, and if there's unity and solidarity, anything is possible.
It is, but we live in a class divided society between the capitalist class and the rest. We live in a society where the ideological state apparatuses attempt to always divide the working class. But we have to recognise in every country, look at Clinton and Trump. In Brazil, look at the way that a left leader has been replaced by a finance creature. Look at the way that is happening globally. That there is an establishment, whether it's the so-called Social Democratic or Labour Party, whether it's the Liberal Party, whether it's the Conservative Party, whether it's UKIP, it's all part of an establishment. And so we cannot just, here's the point, we cannot just rely on electoral politics. This is a hugely important point. Now, I've stood for election, I've fought 13 elections, fought 4 general elections, I've stood for the European Parliament, I was the leader of the Labour councillors on East Sussex County Council in the mid-1980s. Parliament and councils are important. They can pass laws, they can make decisions, such as the ones that you've just referred to. But it ain't enough. We need direct action. We need millions on the streets. We need support. We need a strike action. I mean, if the working class is organised and it has a programme, then a new world is possible. And it's up to the working class. And I looked to the Bolshevik Party, for example, in 1917 Russia. I've just been to St. Petersburg, stood on the actual balcony where Lenin made his speeches between April and July 1917. And so I am actually a Leninist in the sense of believing in party, in organisation and in programme. And where those exist, then we can move mountains. But you do need the, in my view, you need the revolutionary Marxist Party. By revolutionary, to repeat, I just meaning a major change from such as we nearly had in Venezuela, such as we had in Cuba.
Have in Cuba.
Have in Cuba. Haven't had more examples, because every time there is an attempt at such an example, the Marines fly in and kill people. I mean, how many countries have the Americans bombed? How many countries have they invaded since the Second World War? I think it's 54. Every time there is an attempt to have a socialist or a social democrat, left social democrat government, then there's the local stooges, the local capitalist class, the people who are going to take hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars from the States. And where that doesn't work, the Americans just send in the bombers or the Marines and the torturers. So that's what happens. And so that's a problem also with if Corbyn becomes Prime Minister. Chris Mullin wrote a very good book called A Very British Coup. Right. A Very British Coup. It's a very good BBC television programme, actually. And it shows what can happen. You know, I remember, I'm old enough to remember the so-called coup of the colonels plot when Harold Wilson was Prime Minister. The capitalist class was terrified, parts of it, of him. And so there was an incipient, whether it would have been successful or not, different matter, but an incipient coup. There were plans to get rid of Wilson and have a more pro-capitalist government. And so if Corbyn gets in, he's going to need the organised working class to be there on the streets.